Welcome to No Room for Phonies,
Episode 61.
61.
The evolution of parenting.
Empty nesting.
That's
That's
us.
what we're talking about. So my green light moment is kind of the big transition between supporting and socializing with your kids after they've moved out.
Mm-hmm.
And that it is a really fun and rewarding experience because just after Sebastian moved out, like was it 2 weeks after he moved out?
Mm-hmm.
The two boys came home for Sunday dinner, like dinner.
For supper. Dinner,
like supper, whatever. And Sebastian called the night before and...
I said I was making dessert baking a cake.
For
the next night.
For tomorrow night. And he's like, oh, who's coming over for dinner? And Charles
I said, you guys.
You're coming for dinner.
So it was just funny because he wasn't used to that.
And he actually went home that night because he's the one that has just moved out. And he said, yeah, that was really fun to like be the one coming home and just having dinner. And yeah, it was fun. So good. Yeah, so that is kind of a green light moment that it is really a good next step when you can do the supporting and socializing, but you still have, it's a totally different kind of a relationship. And for a book recommendation, I wanted to step back into Friedrich Bachmann because he's written a lot of great books, but fiction, just novels. But I'm currently reading Britt Marie Was Here, and he's the one that wrote Anxious People. So if you look him up, he has like a ton of like really, 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 really good just book stories. So I would recommend him as an author and this book as a like just a fun kind of a read. Right. And I am looking for a day when I can just sit and read.
Yeah, it's been a while, but
it's all fine. It's just felt like we've been busy, and with you back on campus, it just has been. And then just with everything opening up, right? Then there's more things happening and more things to do and all that sort of stuff.
And one of the things will come up in one of the points later on in the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So podcast recommendation, I'd like to recommend Oprah's Super Soul.
Is that her podcast?
Yeah, it's like her Super Soul Sundays, but she talks to all kinds of like really interesting people.
I didn't know that she was doing that.
Yeah, so it's actually quite fun. So I would recommend that. And then our story.
As empty nesters ourselves?
Well, I wanted to kind of go back to like what sort of happened to us as young adults, like how we sort of transitioned into
we had very different
experiences. So I'll
do mine because it's kind of average.
Yeah, yours is average.
So my older brothers had all left home at 17 or 18 because we were in Colombia, South America, and they came to Canada for post-secondary studies. And so they were much younger. And when I came to Canada, my parents had retired from working overseas and were now in Canada. So I lived with them while I did my undergraduate, which was a new experience for them to have a young adult around. And I lived with them until I finished my undergraduate, and I had worked for a year. And then I took off and went and did my master's degree in Vancouver. And that was 2 years away from home when I came.
2 years. Oh, 2 years. I was going to say.
And then I came back and they wanted me to move back in with them and I didn't want to. So then I got my own place.
Right. So for me, my father particularly did not want me to go to university. He just wanted me to marry somebody and kind of, be a wife and mother. So it was hard for him, and I lived at home while I went to university, which was very tricky because my sister and my one brother all had kids really, really young, and so those kids were around, and it was a very small house. Particularly my sister's kids were there a lot, so finding like a quiet place to study or prepare or do or whatever. Plus I had like 30 something piano students the whole time I was in university to finance my tuition and all kinds of other stuff. So, and then after I graduated from Teachers College, which I took what is called a concurrent degree. So I got my teacher's college and my BA together. I did move out, but I wasn't yet hired by the board. So I moved out that summer, and it didn't go very well. My mother was very upset. And anyway, I had enough piano students to finance myself. I had a really cheap apartment in Port Colborne, and I needed my space. But on September 15th of that year, I was hired actually by the board to start my first contract. So that was like 1986. 86, 85, something like that. Anyway. And so then I lived in Port Colborne and drove to Niagara Falls for a year, and then I got an apartment in the Falls. And I lived on my own literally for 10 years before I met you. And then...
No, well, you still lived on your own after you met me.
Yes, true. But I'm just saying, like, I had taught for 10 years before we got married or whatever. So anyway, my experiences was quite different because we celebrated our kids and actually supported and helped them and whatever. And I don't think our parents really handled empty nesting quite the same way.
No, my mom wanted me back living at home and had a hard time with me renting in the same
and
city.
Then when we were dating, which we did not live together before we were married because of the church situation that we were in then and our own choices
at the time.
Convictions at the time. And so that was very hard for your mom that you spent a lot of... I was 30.
We spent a lot of time at each other's
when I
places.
got married. So but she really had a hard time with us spending a lot of time alone before we got married. She didn't trust us. She didn't trust us for whatever reason. But anyway, so it's a totally different experience than what I feel like it has been for our boys. I think for Zachary, he moved out when he went to university, and he literally has not lived at home. He went to Ottawa
at 18,
and then he stayed there that summer and worked like a pretty grueling job delivering parts for not auto parts. Like he put in his time, and then he's been able to find jobs basically in his field, not basically, but in his field since then, because he is
with co-op placements and
other jobs. So he's found a job in his field, and now he's moved from Ottawa to Toronto, which we kind of like. It's a lot shorter.
But another big difference is once he moved away, he kept in touch with us every day for a 1 or 2 minute phone call or texting or messenger or whatever.
Like
So I just never quite felt, I mean, yes, he moved out, so that was a very real thing, but the lack of connection. Like when I moved away to British Columbia, I talked to my mom once a week, once every other week.
Yeah. We hear from our kids. And then with social media, right? Like we have a family social group on Facebook, and then we have a group that's just with Sebastian and a group that's just with Zachary. And so we send messages back and forth. And I just literally got off the phone because he called me on his walk home from work, Zachary. And we hear from Sebastian. Like he often sends us a picture of what he's cooked for dinner, which is kind of fun. So I think their experience has been quite different. And also I feel like financially we have been able to support them a bit more with their moves because our parents had no money or whatever the situation was. We have been generous when they've moved. We've tried to give them a little boost to help them get some new stuff for their apartments. And I basically helped Sebastian set up his kitchen and his bathroom.
Absolutely.
So that he had
and we did similar stuff for Zachary.
We tried to keep it. He moved
from res to house, so that was a little different. But.
So we've tried to, but I feel like it's really been a less traumatic transition for our kids to become that. And so I just thought that today, and I think that we have celebrated their independence and their choices, whereas I often didn't necessarily feel celebrated in my
Well, your father, can I
independence.
say what happened when you started university?
Well, he didn't speak to me.
Your father stopped speaking to you
for a while.
long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we are fostering adult relationships with our kids where we don't always have to agree with all of their choices and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I look at our kids, they make morally sound choices based on how they were raised. Like, you can see that their work ethic and their, Sebastian said, I just cleaned my bathroom. Like, they're not slobs, and they look at, and they're financially, they're managing their own, kinds of stuff. So, I mean, we celebrate their independence, and then when we can, we gift them things that...
Yep. And if they ask for advice, we talk. And we started open channels of communication when they were little, and kept it through high school. Through high school, and a lot of boys hit that grade 9, grade 10 silence, don't want to talk to anybody, grunt phase, and we just didn't allow it. We made them talk. We made them open up.
It wasn't easy,
but I mean, we took away their currency. If they unplug the modem, if you don't have a conversation with us, it wasn't hard.
And so now,
that's paid off, because now they do talk to us about life's choices, and sometimes it's like, well, we don't really need to hear about that particular little problem, because it's a little problem to us.
But we don't care. We are happy.
We're
to
happy
hear
to
from
listen
them.
to
and
them.
They also are starting to hear our challenges and the things that we're going through as well. Then we can talk about them as a family and work through them. So that is has been really good. So I just thought that today I would just give the 10 top rules or tips or whatever for empty nesters. So number 1 is to be ready for a strange feeling, because it is
the
emptiness is weird. Like, when Sebastian moved out, like the way we did it, like we had been in the morning, we had driven he moved to Hamilton, which we had driven there with stuff.
Yeah.
And then we unloaded and everything. And then Zachary had come from Toronto, and we all came back here for dinner. And then they took another load and left, and we didn't go. And so we were like, wow, this is empty.
Dance of joy.
So I think it's really important. Rule number 1 is to lean into your ability to focus on your own desires and needs, and to enjoy the quiet of your house. Today, when we got home, I had been away for most of the day, and Charles had been at work, and we went to one car, so we sort our life around one car, because it's a huge money saver, and we don't very often need two.
No,
it's rare.
No.
So but we got home and we were hungry, so we made tea and a couple of bagels, and then that was 3:00. So now we can make dinner on our own time frame, based on our own needs. And if we want to sit and crochet and watch TV at 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon, there's nobody coming or going, and so it is really
it's different.
It's different, but
nice.
But if you lean into it and kind of enjoy that ability not to have to kind of get a meal ready at a certain time because kids are coming home from work and stuff is happening. So,
and I don't feel like we miss them.
No, because we're
the way our mothers in particularly missed us.
Yes.
That craving of, I need you around.
Well, and when are you coming
every weekend,
home? And we don't.
No.
Yeah. We actually are going to Hamilton. We went to Toronto last weekend and had dinner with the Toronto kids. And then Zachary's coming down to Hamilton on Friday night, and we're going to meet and all have dinner together, which is great. But if that happens,
and if it doesn't,
but,
and we also have said, when it comes to occasions around the year, there's 7 occasions that we like to celebrate as a family, and it doesn't have to be on the particular day or even the weekend of, just as long as, that we recognize those 7 times. And we think that that's a reasonable expectation. Yep. And once there's partners in the picture,
and
then
I think
we don't want to compete with their in-laws.
I might talk about expectations later.
Yeah, you do.
So,
sorry. Okay.
So then the other thing is to delve into passion and compassion and rebuild or refocus your time, because I particularly spend a lot of time on the child that was here.
Yes.
Because when they live here, they kind of just let their stuff, whatever. When it's their own house and their own stuff and their own whatever, they treat it differently.
Yeah, and the same on holidays.
Yeah. So now I have free time. So like we've done some commissions for knitting and crocheting together. Like we're really starting to, like I can work out every single day. Like there's nothing that stops me. Even at like today I went away but I came back and did my workout. And so you really have an opportunity to take a step back and find what you're passionate about, and also take time to look at the world around you and say, well, I feel a certain compassion or a certain whatever towards that, and I can actually put some time into it.
That. Yep.
So I think that's pretty, and
yep. Well, I think we had done a pretty good job staying in touch with each other throughout our marriage.
Oh yeah, that wasn't
the kids interfere. So it wasn't like all of a sudden we were two strangers in the same house.
No, not at all.
But there are people that do experience that.
But I do think like you can, your time is not as structured when there's not a third person, especially a child.
Even though the child didn't care when we ate, or
it's just then they come home, and even if they don't care or cook, there's always, it's never quite cleaned up or done or whatever. But the main thing about this is, I keep a journal, like a day book kind of a thing, and I write down the things that I want to do. And so now things are more focused on the kinds of things that I'm passionate about or that I want to help other people with. And, and if I want to bake 5 dozen muffins and give a dozen to Zachary and a dozen to Sebastian and 2 dozen to somebody else, that's my passion and my compassion all rolled into one.
Yep.
So you can really refocus and rebuild your time. The third one is to refresh your surroundings. Well, we are in the middle of that.
You have spackled the nail holes and sanded down, and we're ready to do sealing and then prime and paint
because we're actually moving into the room that Sebastian moved out of as our room, and then we're converting the other one kind of into a spare room studio kind of a thing. So so if there's some room that you can redo, declutter and get rid of things you don't need, offer stuff to your kids, but do not expect them to want any of your stuff.
No.
Because they often don't.
Yep.
But
they might not have the same
I've gotten rid of what did they say? You spend the first 25 years of your life accumulating stuff, and the next 25 getting rid of stuff. And if you're lucky to go to 75 years married, then you are just sitting in this fun minimalist environment, right?
With containers in the basement.
With containers in the basement. Number 4, really put your health in focus. Eat and exercise and make yourself the priority.
Yeah, although for those of you who didn't go to the gym and used kids as an excuse, there's no excuse that left. So,
and again, we're going to do a shout out for HasFit.
Right, because we don't go to the gym. We work out at home.
We work out at home, and we have minimal equipment. And I just did a workout today, and it was brutal, but I did it with all the equipment, and we haven't spent much really on equipment, I don't feel. Set boundaries that make sense and don't cave into, that's this rule number 5, don't cave into everything your children want. If you're not available when they want to come home or when they want you to do something, you just say so. That's just, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. This past weekend, Sebastian did come home to do his laundry, but we were leaving to go somewhere else. And we hung out for an hour or two in there, but we don't change. Oh, someone wants to come home, so that means I have to cancel everything I have planned.
We did not do that.
Do not do that. And remember that boundaries are not about keeping people out. They're about helping them find the door. So
it's a nice quote.
Yeah, I like that quote a lot.
So then back to expectations.
Yeah, if you're reasonable, I think you can have some, but you can't be upset if, for example, and this is where you've got the holidays don't work out the way you want, and you haven't said what you want to happen.
Right.
Like, I'm going to tell this story that Brene Brown tells about expectations. Like, she woke up and it was her birthday, and it was her husband and her, like, their first birthday after they were married.
Okay.
And there was nothing. And so she went to her therapist and she said, like, in my family, there are balloons and there are donuts on the bed and there are this and that. Like, in some families, right? Like, there's all these birthday. So that's how she had grown up. And so she was really kind of angry at him that he hadn't done all these things. Mm-hmm. The expectation was that, and so the therapist said to her, well, did you tell him that that's what birthdays look like in your mind? And she said no. Well, then she said, well, if you don't speak your expectations, they are probably not going to happen, because people don't read each other's minds.
Like when I bought you some rubber scrapers for Mother's Day.
Yeah, well, whatever. But I'm just saying, so you with your kids as well, like, I mean, I don't, I remember Zachary calling and say, so can we get together for Christmas at this time? And me saying, well, that's the last weekend that your dad is working. Mm-hmm. And he's going to be marking all that weekend. So that would not be a fun time to celebrate. So make your expectations and known and figure it out. I think most people can figure stuff out.
Yeah.
There might be a twinge of uncomfortableness every once in a while. Discomfort. Yeah, there you go. That's the word. That's the word I was looking for. But honestly, if you sit back and say, well, I wish my kids would, take me out for dinner for my birthday, or I wish my kids would this or that. I'm not a surprise person, so I don't ever want my kids to plan a surprise party for me.
I did one.
Yeah, you did do one.
But it was mild.
Very mild. But I'm not a surprise person, so I would rather just have the anticipation.
Actually, I told you a few days ahead that there was going to be some people at the house for the party, but I didn't tell you who.
No. But I'm just saying,
because I knew that you didn't want the big...
No. And so I would rather sit down and say, hey, I'd really like to do this as an experience or that as an experience, or let's all go to a show, or let's all go somewhere for dinner now that we actually can again. So that's a really important one. If you are sitting home thinking, oh, I wish my kids would blah, 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 blah. If your expectations are reasonable, there was a time when we got a list of expectations that were 17 pages long.
17 pages long from my mother.
And that was not reasonable. So we went to therapy and sorted that out.
Sorted that all out.
But you can be reasonable. I think you can be reasonable. Yeah. So number 7, I think you have to nurture your friendships and connections. And especially the ones that don't include your kids. Like, you don't have to be friends with your kids' friends. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to be friends with your friends. Like, you can now start to lead these separate lives. Like, Sebastian just got asked to be in a wedding party.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And he was very excited about it. And he's like, but they're having a really small wedding and they're not inviting you guys.
We know the couple.
We know the couple, but just minimally
acquaintances.
And we've been. We really like them, and they're really a good friend mix for Sebastian. He's been a real good mentor and friend for Sebastian, and we really love them. But
there was no...
I was like, no, thanks. That's fine. Yeah, we're good. We're happy for you to have your friends and your life and your you're building
You
up
know,
your life.
and we tell each other enough anecdotes mentioning friends' names that we kind of know each other.
Yes, like
friends by name.
when I was talking to Zachary today, I said, "Oh, I was at Jade's with the kids today, and we went on a I can talk." And he knows, he's seen pictures of them, and he knows who they are. But I'm never gonna have a dinner where I have Zachary and his partner and Sebastian and Jade and her family. Like if that ever happened, that would be weird. Sorry, it would be weird.
It would be fine.
It would be fine, but it's good for everybody to have their social circle.
Some of the best dinner parties I've been at is where you mixed random people.
I understand that, and we can do that. But
some of the worst have been at the time where we mix random people. So
we had one where we mixed random at the last minute, and we found out afterwards when the one couple was in the living room and the other couple walked in the door that they were actually feuding. So that was a beautiful evening. It was terrible. It was terrible, and it was spontaneous.
It was spontaneous.
We were all skating at the arena.
Hey, that's okay.
Anyway, we won't go into that. Just focus on your partner. Establish the new normal with your kids. Plan stuff together and step out and let them live their lives, which is similar to what I have been saying. Yeah. But it really is important that you establish a new normal, that you don't expect it to be like it was, because it's called launch. And if you've watched the movie Failure to Launch, you don't want you. And
statistically, we know that in North America, there's a good chance of either son returning home to live with us between the ages of 25 and 35 for a short interim, because that is happening a lot because of the economy. And at the moment, we have no advice to give about that except boundaries.
Except maybe if you have enough money to help them pay their rent till they get over whatever their issue is, maybe that's a good idea.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I would consider that. Like if it was like, oh, I'm between jobs and I can't really afford, here, why don't I just pay your rent this month and you just stay put?
Yeah.
As long as it's not a long-term kind of a thing,
That's right?
But yeah, new normal. And plan stuff together, adult stuff like you would with other friends.
Yeah, that's right.
And I mean, Friday night we went to Toronto for dinner, and we're kind of used to paying, and they...
Yep, they took initiative to treat us. So that was really special.
Kind of nice. And...
the next thing is to focus on
your partner, your marriage.
Like I am right now on camera.
You can live like newlyweds.
Yes.
You don't have to be fully dressed all the time. We'll stop there. And then the 10th one is something that we do on a regular basis. We don't have grandchildren, and we are not encouraging, like, we're not like, oh, when are you going to get married? And when are you going to give us kids and grandkids? And we have
just like when we were that age and wanted the privacy of that not being discussed, we respect that for our kids.
Well, and we had people say, because we were in our 30s when we got married, and we were in a
community where everybody got married at 20 and had 7
and so
kids.
I had someone say, well, aren't you like going to have your kids right away? Like if you don't have your kids soon, you're going to be like their grandparents. And I'm like, I'm 30. Like most of the people around me right now are having their kids in their 30s. Yeah. Late 20s,
early 30s.
Yep. So, but we spend a lot of time with little people, and they enhance your life.
Yep.
Like this weekend, we had like little kids. It was our friend's daughter's first birthday. And
her older brother's turning 3 next month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went to the party.
So we were with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
And then yesterday we babysat them because it was their grandma's 60th and they were having a big party. But
you really don't need the young people, the little people, to be your own relatives.
No.
It's totally fine. That
and then kids. Today I was there, and I mean, there are sweet little friends and our neighbor kids, and then we have another couple of our little twins boys who we actually had here overnight so that their mom and dad could have a little honeymoon away, and we took them to the sugar bush. Like it was fun. Good. We do some substitute kind of grandparenting, but it's just, we can just pop in and pop out, and I cook and bake and buy birthday presents and just kind of do that. But it's huge for us. Like,
yeah, it's very energizing, and it's good.
And there are lots of families around who having someone sort of stand in the gap for them when it comes to parents and grandparents too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know,
and we're very careful with boundaries again. Yeah. Like, we would not do the 5 days a week babysitting.
No. And I have no expectation, even like, we were very happy to and very honored to be included in the birthday party for the 1-year-old.
Yeah.
But I had no expectation of that because they have their own grandparents and their own family and their own, so I could bring a gift at another time with no expectation of being like sort of included in the, I mean, it was fun and we loved being there, and we made our little contribution and everything, but we just love them and like spending time with them whenever it is helpful to mom and dad or just for fun.
Yep.
Like,
and we also have a few people older than us that we look after, check in on.
Yeah. So,
it's kind of voluntary sandwich generation without the stress of it being like, really,
we're choosing it. Like, this is our,
so we choose it within
when you say, but spending time with young families and little people, to me, we find it energizing. And my always line to especially the younger people is, I'm here to like reduce your stress and make things easier for you. And I would say that 110% of the time, young families are happy to have someone's around them has no expectations, it's not putting pressure on them, just loves their kids and wants to spend time, and will clean up the kitchen while they're babysitting or fold some laundry or do some stuff, and will take their kids outside or do whatever with them and just love them. Kids need... This is a crazy world that we live in. So,
and I know there's lots of families that have both sets of parents and grandchildren and everything, but then there's also families with divorce situations, and those parents need support too.
But even the fact that
single moms, everybody.
But even my friend in Grimsby, she has both her mom and her husband has in-laws, his parent and his in-laws. But I'm just kind of that extra little bit of love. We are that extra little bit of love, and the world's a crazy place. Extra love doesn't really hurt anybody, does it? Not at all. So, little kids. So those are our 10 rules for empty nesters. I think they're pretty straightforward. And
now we're looking forward to episode 63.
This is 62.
I'm wrong.
This is 62.
We are looking forward to episode 62.
April 15th. You get to talk about your knitting journey.
Oh, fun.
All the way.
And then when yours joined along.
And when mine joins. So we're going to talk about that because I'm kind of hooking into number 2 here with the passioning.
Right.
And later on where it talks about a new normal and focusing on each other. So I thought we could talk about our knitting journey.
So this is still our empty nesters part.
Well, not real. I'm
kidding. It's a spin-off.
It's a spin-off. So yeah, thanks for joining us on our the evolution of parenting. We've evolutioned into the evolved into the next stage of parenting, the empty nest stage, and we thought we'd just share our thoughts about that. So thanks for joining us
on No Room for Phones, episode 61, The Evolution of Parenting, Empty Nesting.